I'm Mark Fernandez, and this is Franchising with Fernandez. Hi, I'm on the phone today with Paul Constantinou, the founder and chairman of Quest Apartment Hotels, based in glorious Melbourne. Welcome, Paul.
Great to be here, Mark. Thanks for having me on board.
Oh, pleasure. And Paul, let's get straight into it. Let's talk about how many franchisees and support staff do you have working with you? I believe you're in 4 countries at the moment. Is that right?
That's right. We're in Australia, New Zealand, Fiji, and in the UK, in Liverpool, that we opened up last year. So we have 175 properties, of which we've got about 145 franchisees. And the reason there's a different number is some of our franchisees are multiple owners of number of franchises. So, and again, like you said, scattered over the countryside, about 11,000 apartments in total.
Wow, fabulous. It must be an amazing journey over the last 30 or 40 years to get to today.
Mark, it's been one of those things. Who would have thought, if someone asked me that question back in '88 when we first started? No, I never thought that. But it's amazing what one thing you love about business is that you're always thinking about tomorrow. And someone asked me that question, did you ever think it was going to get big? I said, not really. All I ever wanted to do is every time I opened one, I thought, you know what, I might try for another one. And then we try for another one. And as you maintain slow, steady growth and you get to a position, it's when you look back to say, geez, look what I've achieved. That doing the work today is no different to what I did before.
There you go. Now, Paul, we've been going through a global crisis with this epidemic here. So what I'd love to do is get you to share with us your last few weeks of what you've been doing and through these crazy times, I guess.
Yeah. Oh, look, it's been busy. I think one of the things that we've done was to group all our franchisees and that's hard when they're across so many locations, but via webinars and some digital talks that we do on Skype and whatever, we try to get everyone on board and just tell them all to say, let's take a deep breath, so we know exactly where we're going with this, because no one knew the extent of where this was going to go. And my previous, or not my previous, but over the years, I've experienced the recessions of the 90s. We've had SARS, we've had bird flu, we've had swine flu, we've had GFC, we had what they call the airline strike where pilots weren't flying. So we've had them all. And as I said, the franchisee, this time sounds a bit like if you put them all together in one basket, that's what we've got today. So the most important thing is we had to bring knowledge to our franchisees to eliminate levels of fear, because franchisees have invested a lot of money in their businesses and we're there to support them and protect that equity. But the best way of doing that is making sure that everyone's got the right mindset about working through it. So yes, we've got an issue today, but there's always tomorrow. And what does tomorrow look like for us? And how do we take a deep breath and be patient and work slowly, and then we'll feed you the information. Especially in the last few weeks, we've heard a lot of legislation come out of government, and you've got to absorb that and then bring it to the franchisee in a way that they can understand it and then apply it to their businesses. They get government support going forward. And I think the last one that we got out just recently was the JobKeeper allowance that they can receive. But if the franchisees haven't registered as being part of that plan, then they can't get it. So we had to make sure that everyone was registered with their ABNs via the plan. So that's the sort of work we've been doing at the moment.
Right. Wow. It sounds like an enormous task with your people and support staff to communicate, probably daily, if not twice daily, to the group, I'd imagine.
Absolutely. And the most important thing is, and this is why, when franchisees join the franchise company, that's the support that they want. They want to know that there's someone leading the way to explain to them the type of environment we're going through, where it's going, and giving them the information. I think and that's our obligation to the franchisee. As we say to franchisees, our obligation is to make you successful. your obligation back to us is to want to be successful. And if we work on those premise, and that's the platform we start from, we're going to get there. It's not going to be easy, especially in the current climate. But we can't look back and say, look, woe is me, I'm going to give up. Give up is not a word we want to talk about. This is about how we're going to get through it. And not about just to survive. The most important thing I've said to them through the message I sent back to the network, survival is what we do, but a lot of survivors can't live through it. Ours is about taking survivorship and building it as leaders to go forward into the next generation of business, because we don't know what that's going to look like either. But we've got to have that framework and that mental ability to say, we are here to basically grow, continue to grow. Surviving is the thing, growing is the next part. And that's more important to focus on what we want to achieve in the next 12 months, as opposed to where I'm going to be in June.
Wow, great. Now, Paul, the franchisees in general have been scared. They've been looking for leadership. They're looking for reduction in fees. They've got leasing issues. They've got so many aspects and fundamentals of business resting on their shoulders. And I'm sure that you and your group have provided some support to them, both financially and from a business point of view. Can you just walk us through some of the initiatives that you've done to help and support your franchisees around the world?
So what we've done is basically, and it's an important thing, it's showing them how we work through this together. And we talk about the balanced stakeholder approach. We have a number of stakeholders in our business, and one of them is the landlord, and I'll come back to that a bit later. But it's also on how we deal with our customers. And some of our customers can't travel because they can't get on a plane. So our business being putting bums in beds, and if they can't fly around, they're not coming to you, but there's other opportunities. So we're showing them on how we're dealing with those that can travel, and be it with the medical staff, with the doctors, and again, in Western Australia, the Western Australia has basically okayed the mining industry to be an essential service. And because of the fly-in, fly-out basically stopped, we're now housing a lot of the mining employees that still have to get to the mines to get the job done. So it's how do we continually, and we show to employees, this is not to the franchisees, is working with your local community so we know what's going on. Then we can support you from a macro level as well. So we talk about how we then support our employees and going on this job keeper allowance, how we can support them to try to keep them employed. And those that we can't, how do we put them and give them some relief in terms of we can bring them back to work. And we've got and even with on how we deal with the bankers. Now, bankers have offered some support in terms of holding back on interest charges and principal charges. So what we do is formulate a process on how they should be communicating with their bank. And we also then talk to the banks at a higher level about the Quest franchisees. So when they do approach you, what should they be bringing to you? And it's all that knowledge that we put to support. And same with franchise fees. The good thing about our franchise fee, it's done on a percentage basis. So if you're not taking any money, you're not paying any fees. So, and if you're only taking a little bit of money, you're only paying a little bit of fees. So ours is, it's not a fixed cost you've got to pay every month. And at the end of the day, we don't expect to, in fact, we're putting money into our organisation for the support process to drive the future of their businesses and our business going forward. Because as we keep on saying, our success completely depends upon the success of the franchisee. And these guys we want to keep in business. That's the most important thing. And one of the other stakeholders is the landlord, who's a critical part. And I'll suggest that all franchisees, irrespective what type of business they're in, are going to have issues with landlords. We went out to our landlords and said, look, for the time being, we're not going to pay any rent until we get an understanding from government as to what's going to be the most beneficial way and a way in which is supported by government on how we should be dealing with landlords. And that's been great. So on Friday, we had the new code of conduct in terms of how we should be dealing with landlords. So we're now going back to each of our landlords saying this is how we can deal to basically allow you to work with us over the next 3 months. And because some of our businesses are still doing okay. So this is not right across the board, but there's some of our businesses that aren't doing, they're luckily doing 10% occupancy, depending where they're located. So we're working with each one to show the franchisee how he maintains the relationship with the landlord today. Because what we're really talking about is a situation that's happened probably only a month ago it started and might last for another 3, we don't know, it could last 6 months. But our business has been in business for a long time. Our landlords have been our landlords for a long time. So having a difficulty for a few months, it's not caused by a recession or anything like that. This is caused by some phenomena being a virus, that whereby the majority of people in business have had to close down because of being in lockdown. Now, whether you're selling a restaurant or whether you're in whatever business you're in, the majority of them had to basically close up. So we're now getting a path that how can we work with our landlords to get through this period on a shared basis to grow our businesses together, so we come out at the other end to get back onto business.
Great. And your field staff, are they still assisting the franchisees with some, business principles and support?
Absolutely. The FRMs, which we call the franchisee relationship managers, they are the critical part, because we find a franchisee will go to those first. So we have daily catch-ups with the FRMs via Skype or one of those digital sites you can jump on to talk to them, to making sure that whereby we're seeing, because this becomes an emotional thing as well. So when I look at business people, and again, I remember being in this position back in the recessionary days in the early 90s when I just sort of started off Quest. And when you're paying 22.5% interest trying to run a business and pay back banks, and someone throws a pilot strike on you and a recession, it hurts. But it's how do we work through it? And having been through it and having had those cold sweats, the biggest issue you have is how can I maintain mental stability? Because a lot of franchisees out there would be seriously worrying about the equity that they have in their businesses. How am I going to feed my family? How am I going to maintain the value of my house? Do I have to sell my house? And what we are is basically working with them to work with their banks and all the other stakeholders within their business to show the path of how we will all ride through this together to come out of the other end and be successful.
Yeah, wonderful. Now, Paul, can I just turn to you personally? I'm sure this has had an effect on you and your family. Can you walk us through, some of the things that you've been challenged with in your family?
Yep, good question on those things, and we've got to really get down to it's the empathy side, and you feel for what's going on, and I've got grandchildren as well, and my children, and you feel for those. But I think it was an instance whereby I was one of the franchisees' businesses here in Victoria in Abbotsford, and not far from the building is a Centrelink where people were queuing up, and the line was literally all around the corner, and something that you only watch on TV. You see these things during depressions, through world wars, where people literally don't have anything. And that really got to me. And in fact, it got to me to the extent that in our reception, we have one or two ladies just sitting on the couch and having a cry. And got to remember, it was only a few months ago, everyone's whistling Dixie, how well they're going, what we had for dinner last night, which restaurant we went to last night, what new car I bought the other day. And to see this and say, this hurts, and this hurt me in the sense that you've got to feel for these people. Some of us are fortunate, some of us just don't have it. And part of the thing we do is we work with some of the communities even today, with some of the homeless that have been put out, to see how we can support. But it's that it really hurts when you see other people hurting from a country like Australia that's got everything to provide. And to see this, it just shook me to bits.
Yeah, I think you're talking about that vulnerability now. I think everyone is vulnerable in some shape or form, and depending on the pressures, it's showing through. So to recognise that and put your arm around someone and say, "Hey, how you doing? Are you okay?"
Absolutely,
is sort of what we're needed here.
Yep. So true, Mark.
Great. All right, Paul, I'm going to fast forward 6 or 9 months. Tell me, what do you see for your business and for franchising in Australia? Where do you think it's all heading?
Look, I actually think I think it's for the positive. I think out of these, and one thing I can say, having gone through all these calamities we've had in the past, there is a silver lining, and it's the way we do business in the future. This hardens us up to basically look at our own systems, and as a franchisor to evolve our systems. Because sometimes what we find is that when we've had a good run for a while, we do become a bit slack, we become a bit complacent. So this is a great time to improve our systems and also relook at our core business. And how, are we true to our core, why the business has existed? One of the things we've seen is the amount of people that travel. Now, Quest as a brand is basically it's an accommodation brand, but our core focus is focusing on corporate extended stay travels. People that need somewhere to stay more than 2 or 3 nights. Because typically, if you're going to stay 1 or 2 nights, you can go and stay in a hotel. But because we're apartment-style hotels, we aim for that longer-term customer. And what we've found is that we actually, I would say, not lost our way, but we're trying to get even that hotel business where we shouldn't have. And what we're finding now is that by sticking to our core, we're now getting those customers back. So it's basically saying the reason that we're still being able to track and travel in terms of travelling forward in our business, we're seeing better results in our performance. I know there's a long way to go, but in 6 months' time, what we're going to find is we're going to be a lot more compliant to our core. I think from a franchisee, they're going to start seeing the importance of a franchisor. And where the franchisors have gone out there to support in these current climates with the systems and the way we communicate and lead our franchisees through it, I find the franchising industry will grow out of this because that's what people want. The hardest thing in business, and having gone through it all my life, is when you open up a business and you're by yourself, it's a hard feeling. When you're as part of a group, and we find it even now that with our franchisees and they cluster themselves around Australia and the States, they can talk to other people in business. And the fact that you're knowing that you've got someone there to assist you so you can ask the question without being intimidated to support you, that's what's going to be the true strength of franchising. And I find that the franchisors that are doing the right thing today will become stronger. And people also, having had the time to not be at work and work from home, they're going to ask themselves the question, do I want to maintain the employment I've got today, or do I really want to go out and try to build a business for myself via franchising? And I think that's where we're going to get a bit more demand because people have been sitting at home and they're going to have a time to ask that question. And franchising, you'll find we have the biggest growth in franchising demand inquiries come after peak holiday periods. Because people then look at themselves and say, do I really want to still be an accountant? Maybe it's time for me to hang up my boots in accountancy and go and open up that business I've always wanted to do, but I must do it with a franchisor that I can leverage the skills they have in that industry.
Wonderful. Thank you, Paul, for those insights. Now, if I can get you to just wrap up and give us in the Australian franchising community some words of, I don't know, inspiration. We're in dark times right now, but, you know, we've got to have some positives here. So you got anything you'd like to share to the Australian franchise community?
Look, the most important thing I'd like to share is the fact that we are going through a massive change and we've got to see it as change. And as you know, people have said in the past, in times of change, it's not the businesses that have the biggest balance sheet. It's not the businesses that have the smartest people. It's the businesses that have the ability to adapt to these changing times and look to the future and stop worrying about the current situation we're in. Because that's an obstacle. You're not going to knock it over yourself. You've got to learn to walk around it. And I think the most important thing, there's so much opportunity that comes out of these situations. But if we don't look for it, you're only going to look at the obstacle, and that's going to stop you growing. So what I've found is that in past times, every time we've had a difficult situation, there's been 3 or 4 great opportunities out there to continue the growth of the business. And what we've got to wake up every day to say, what can I do next? I'm not going to worry about yesterday because I can't change it. but I can change tomorrow, and I'll adapt to these changes that are going on today and build my business for the future. And it's that business, and it's that, because people say to me, "Oh, look, this is it's one of those situations that don't happen. It's never happened before, and you can't predict the future." I said, "Well, that's right, but the reality is, no one can predict the future. But what you can do is create it. So it is up to you to look at the opportunities that exist today and go for it." And I can assure you, having been through half a dozen or so of these calamities in the past, that took our business to a better business. So from one business in 1988 to 175 today, it wasn't smooth sailing. But you know what? We steered through it, and we're still growing.
There you have it. Thank you, Paul. Paul Constantinou, Chairman and founder of Quest Apartment Hotels. We really thank you and appreciate your time today. And I wish you all the best for you and your family to stay safe. And we look forward to hearing from you and your successes, maybe the other side of Christmas. Take
That's
care,
great.
Paul.
Thank you very much, Mark, and to your listeners. It's been great talking to you, and thank you, and thank you for having me. Chat to you. Thank you.
Pleasure. Bye for now. If you have any positive franchising stories out there, I'd love to hear them. Drop me an email at mark@bda-online.com.au. I'm Mark Fernandez, and this is Franchising with Fernandez.